Have you ever bought something you didn't really need, only to feel excited for a few days and then strangely empty afterward? Most of us have. A new phone, a new car, a new outfit, a new gadget, or a new subscription. For a brief moment, the purchase feels satisfying. We imagine our lives becoming better, happier, more complete. Then, something unexpected happens. The excitement fades, and before long, we are looking for the next thing, the next purchase, the next upgrade, the next hit of excitement. This cycle is so common that most people rarely question it, but perhaps we should, because consumerism is not simply about buying products. Consumerism is a psychological system that teaches us to seek identity, status, happiness, and meaning through consumption. The idea itself is relatively new. For most of human history, people primarily consumed what they needed to survive: food, shelter, clothing, and tools. Luxury goods existed, but they were limited to the wealthy. The average person was not constantly surrounded by advertisements urging them to reinvent themselves through purchases. But today's world is very different. The average person encounters thousands of advertisements every day, on television, on websites, on social media, on billboards, inside mobile apps, even while watching videos or listening to music. Everywhere we look, someone is trying to sell us something, and often they are not selling a product. They are selling an identity. A luxury car is not marketed as transportation. It is marketed as success. Designer clothing is not marketed as fabric. It is marketed as status. Fitness products are not marketed as equipment. They are marketed as transformation. Consumer culture teaches a subtle lesson. You are not enough as you are, but with the right purchase, you could become the person you want to be. This message is powerful because it targets one of the deepest human desires, the desire for self-improvement. We all want better lives. We all want to grow. And we all want acceptance and success. Consumerism takes those natural desires and connects them to spending. The result is a society where shopping becomes more than an activity. It becomes a way of searching for meaning. And that search fuels one of the most powerful psychological systems ever created. If consumerism is so effective, it is because it taps directly into the reward system of the human brain. To understand this, we need to talk about dopamine. Dopamine is often called the pleasure chemical, but that description is incomplete. Dopamine is more accurately a motivation chemical. It drives anticipation, it fuels desire, it encourages pursuit. What's fascinating is that dopamine often spikes before we get the reward, not after. Think about ordering something online. Many people experience excitement when they click the purchase button, then they track the package, then they check delivery updates, then they wait for it to arrive. The anticipation itself becomes rewarding. Retailers understand this. That is why shopping experiences are carefully designed. Limited time offers, flash sales, exclusive drops, countdown timers, and pre-orders. All of these tactics activate anticipation. The brain begins chasing the possibility of reward. And once the reward arrives, something interesting happens. The excitement quickly fades. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. Human beings rapidly become accustomed to new circumstances. The new phone becomes just another phone. The new car becomes just another car. The new purchase becomes part of everyday life. Then the brain begins searching again. This creates a cycle. Want, buy, enjoy, adapt, repeat. Consumer culture thrives on this cycle. The system does not require you to stay satisfied. In fact, permanent satisfaction will be bad for business. The system works best when people continually seek fulfillment through future purchases. The result is a society filled with people who are constantly chasing happiness but rarely catching it. Not because happiness is impossible, but because consumption and fulfillment are not the same thing, and confusing the two can become a lifelong trap. One of the biggest myths about consumerism is that people buy things solely because they like them. In reality, many purchases are social. Human beings constantly compare themselves to others. We compare income, appearance, homes, cars, careers, relationships, vacations, and lifestyle. This tendency has deep evolutionary roots. For thousands of years, social status influenced access to resources, mates, and opportunities. Status mattered, and in many ways, it still does. Modern consumer culture transforms products into status symbols. Certain brands communicate wealth. Certain products communicate success. Certain lifestyles communicate prestige. People often purchase these symbols because they want others to perceive them in a certain way. Sometimes they want admiration, sometimes acceptance, sometimes respect, sometimes belonging. Social media has dramatically intensified this process. For the first time in history, people can compare themselves to hundreds or even thousands of others every single day. Friends post vacation photos. Influencers showcase luxury lifestyles. Celebrities display wealth. The result is what psychologists call upward comparison. People compare themselves to those who appear more successful, and these comparisons often create dissatisfaction. The problem is that social media rarely shows reality, it shows highlights. People compare their ordinary lives to someone else's carefully curated moments. The comparison is unfair from the start, yet it still affects emotions. The more people compare, the more they feel inadequate. The more inadequate they feel, the more attractive consumption becomes. The purchase promises relief. The purchase promises improvement. The purchase promises status. And the cycle continues. Consumerism thrives not only on desire, it thrives on comparison. One of the most overlooked aspects of consumerism is its connection to emotional regulation. Many people do not shop because they need something. They shop because they feel something. Stress, loneliness, anxiety, boredom, sadness, and frustration. Shopping can temporarily reduce uncomfortable emotions. For a short period, it creates excitement and distraction. This is why some people engage in what psychologists call retail therapy. The purchase becomes a coping mechanism. Not unlike other behaviors that provide temporary relief, the problem is that emotional pain rarely disappears through consumption. The underlying issue remains. The loneliness remains. The anxiety remains. The insecurity remains. Eventually, the emotional discomfort returns, and when it does, another purchase may seem appealing. This creates a dangerous cycle. Emotional distress leads to spending. Spending creates temporary relief. Relief fades. Distress returns. Spending resumes. For some individuals, this cycle can become financially devastating. Debt accumulates. Stress increases. The emotional problems worsen. Yet, the person continues searching for relief through consumption. The irony is that many advertisements intentionally target emotional vulnerabilities. They promise confidence, love, belonging, acceptance, and success. They rarely focus on the actual product. Instead, they focus on the emotional state the consumer hopes to achieve. And that makes consumerism far more psychological than economic. It is not merely about buying things, it is about managing emotions. Unfortunately, purchases are often poor substitutes for the deeper needs people are trying to satisfy. Consumerism is powerful because it speaks to genuine human needs. The need for belonging, the need for identity, the need for purpose, the need for self-worth, and the need for meaning. The solution is not to stop buying things. The solution is to become aware of why we buy them. Awareness changes everything. Before making a purchase, it can be helpful to ask a simple question. Am I buying this because I need it, or because I believe it will change how I feel? That question alone can reveal surprising insights. Many purchases are driven less by necessity and more by emotion. Another important step is separating identity from possessions. Consumer culture encourages people to define themselves through what they own. But genuine identity comes from values, character, relationships, and experiences, not products. Research consistently shows that long-term happiness is more closely linked to meaningful relationships, purpose, health, and personal growth than material possessions. That does not mean possessions are unimportant. It means they are limited. A product can improve comfort. It cannot create purpose. A purchase can create convenience. It cannot create meaning. A luxury item can impress strangers. It cannot replace genuine connection. The hidden psychology of consumerism teaches us an important lesson. Many of the things we are seeking cannot be purchased. Belonging cannot be bought. Purpose cannot be bought. Love cannot be bought. And meaning cannot be bought. The danger arises when people spend years searching for these things in places they cannot be found. Consumerism is not merely a system of buying and selling. It is a system of belief. A belief that happiness is always one purchase away. A belief that fulfillment can be delivered to your doorstep. A belief that the next upgrade will finally complete you. But the evidence suggests something different. The good life is built more through relationships than possessions. More through purpose than products. More through experiences than acquisitions. And perhaps the most powerful act in consumer culture is learning to recognize when enough is already enough. Because once you stop chasing happiness through consumption, you become free to search for it where it has always been, in the things that money can never buy. The hidden psychology of consumerism is ultimately the psychology of desire. It reveals how marketers, brands, and entire industries tap into fundamental human needs for belonging, status, identity, and meaning. The goal is not to reject modern life. The goal is to understand it, because the moment we understand why we want something is often the moment we gain control over whether we truly need it. And in a world constantly encouraging us to consume more, that awareness may be one of the most valuable forms of freedom we can develop. Listen, addiction doesn't just take your habits, it takes your identity. If you're serious about breaking free from addiction and taking control of your life, I created something for you. My book, The Ultimate Guide to Overcoming Addiction, Steps, Tools, and Resources, is a complete roadmap, not just motivation, but real practical steps you can follow starting today. If you feel stuck, overwhelmed, or like nothing has worked before, this is exactly what you need. This isn't theory. This is a step-by-step system to help you rebuild your life, your discipline, and your mindset. It's available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook formats. Check it out in the description below.